This episode is part of the transformational podcast Systems in Motion. If you want to learn more about the leverage points, please listen to the opening episode. In this episode, you will get first-hand experience and knowledge of water management in Honduras. Herewith, you get the unique chance to listen to Camille, who lived there. You will learn about a promising pilot project that uses an integrative, participatory approach.
Welcome! I am your host Camille Brüssel, and on this episode, I will tell you about an approach developed in Honduras that ensures water security and biodiversity conservation. As we know, water is not only an elementary component of life, it is a human right. Access to clean water and sanitation is essential for our survival and development, and that is why the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 of the United Nations is water and sanitation for all. But we are actually a long way from achieving this. According to the latest UN World Water Report, around 2.1 billion people lack access to potable and consistently available drinking water. And all this is dramatically intensified by the climate crisis. Most affected are people or families in the poorer regions of the world, and they're especially in rural areas. Although more than 2/3 of the earth is covered by water, only less than 3% of it is potable, and this amount is very unevenly distributed around the world. So in order to counteract this problem, we need innovative ideas and measurements to ensure the access to safe water. But what does safe water mean? Safe water is when it is accessible to people close to their homes, also available when needed, and of course free of contamination. Because what good is it if there is water nearby, but it comes from a polluted river and is full of pathogens? Taking a deeper look into the challenges and existing opportunities of sustainably managing water, I want to present you an approach developed in Honduras to prevent the water problematic and ensure water security and biodiversity conservation on a long term. But first, let me give you a quick insight into the framework conditions prevailing in the country in order to understand the necessity of this approach and why it is so successful. Although Honduras has abundant natural resources that are considered wealth in other countries, the environmental problems are present precisely where they should be considered development potential. You have to know that in Honduras, the access to water has become critical due to the degradation of water sources, the pollution of surface and groundwater, the massive destruction of forest areas and microbasins. And in this country, the water management and supply is actually a service assumed by the state. But the lack of current and adequate legislation, policies, institutions, and also the different interests behind this resource make it difficult to have an integrated management of water within the country. The main problem in this country is that the watershed management laws are not only uncoordinated, but they are also designed in such a way that they are not oriented to promote the participation of local actors. The needs and interests of the affected population are not considered or included in the management of natural resources. And of course, the existing legal framework tends to favor a minority, as we know. Here in the country, primarily state actors and private companies, leading to disruptions in the forest and watershed areas, making them available for other agro-industrial purposes, destructive procedures that lead to the lack of clean and safe water. So, in order to guarantee the access to water for the local population, the Ecological Association of San Marcos Ocotepeque, AESMO, launched a pilot project of collective land purchase and management of forests and microbasins in rural areas in the west of the country. But what is so special about this model? And can it really contribute to the water problematic on a local and national level? This project was created to reintroduce biodiversity conservation and the functioning of the adjacent microbasins by collectively purchasing more than 800 hectares of land in the Trifino Biosphere Reserve declared by UNESCO and leaving the nature to self-restoration. The enforcement works as follows. Private land or forests with adjacent microbasins are purchased collectively through the financial support of international corporations, the local water management boards, and the correspondent municipalities. The purchased land titles are then transferred to the local population, represented by the water boards, being them then the owners in order to prevent the problems of misuse, destruction, and pollution of the ground and water by third parties, and consequently benefiting from the existing natural resources. So, what has to be considered during these procedures? First of all, it is important to ensure the participation of various social actors in the different phases of the purchase and also the conservation of the land, cultivating good and strategic relations between all these actors. Second, we need a permanent process of environmental education and the development of strategies for inclusion of women, indigenous people, children, and youth. This is needed at each stage to ensure the sustainability of the process over time. And just as important, the establishment of forest guards for surveillance and also the elaboration of different financial mechanisms for purchase. Of course, always having in mind sharing the lessons learned with other actors at different levels of action. What has made this approach so successful is the establishment and cultivation of alliances between municipal governments, community water management boards, ISMO, and international conservationist institutions such as IOC in Holland and World Land Trust, and of course, the existing democracy in decision-making and the legal land tenure in favor of the local population. All of this together has generated a mechanism for the conservation of natural resources, providing a wealth of knowledge that can be useful to respond to similar challenges at national level. The process of purchasing land for biodiversity and water conservation has been a rewarding experience for the local population. We can talk about the increase in the quality of water for domestic and agricultural consumption, together with the improvement of the surrounding ecosystems. Those are results of great importance achieved in a relatively short period of time, which sends a message of hope that similar processes can be replicated in other protected areas in Honduras. The collective land purchase and participatory protection of biosphere reserves can be related to 5 leverage points. The first one is the leverage point number 6, the structure of information flows. This project facilitates the information exchange between the different actors involved and also has an effect on people's opinion and actions towards the management of natural resources, resulting in sustainable changes for the population and also the environment. The second one is the 5th leverage point, the rules of the system. By giving the power of decision-making and management back to the local population, the biodiversity conservation and water supply can be guaranteed and the management regulations are developed based on the needs of the local population and not on the decisions and measurements of the current state power as usual. As third, the 4th leverage point, the power to add, change, evolve, or self-organized system structure. The collective land purchase and the participatory protection of biosphere reserves create a new management and ownership constellation that involves different collaborations between all actors and also serves as an innovative process of mitigation and adaptation to climate change, having the potential to change the way of managing land and water in other parts of the country. The 4th leverage point number 3, the goals of the system. Through this pilot project, not only the biodiversity of the land is protected, but moreover, the new focus relies on providing the local population with sufficient and safe water. Lastly, this approach relates to the 2nd leverage point, the mindset of paradigm out of which the system arises. By working deeply together with different actors of the state and civil society, this pilot project changed their priorities and modified their thinking and actions towards using the forest and water resource in a sustainable way. So let's get it all together. This approach not only guarantees water security within the affected communities, but it also counteracts the overall water problem in Honduras. It represents a successful approach that can be transferred to other watersheds within the country and to other countries of the global south, which are lacking a sustainable water management. What really makes this pilot project so special is the decision-making and power transfer back to the local population, thus guaranteeing, of course, the sustainable management of the forest, the microbasins, and therefore the water supply for present and future generations. Thank you very much for listening. For more information about this approach, reach out to the Ecological Association of San Marcos Ocotepeque, AESMO, through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or by visiting their website aesmo.org.